After initially talking about the Nintendo Music app, it was pointed out to me that several tracks were sourced from CD releases, which contained differences from the music heard on console hardware. I found the differences to be a little strange, but hey, maybe the version on the CD is the developer's uncompromised vision. There's a chance that the instrument samples were compressed in the transition to console. While I'd focused on Nintendo's arrangement CDs before, I didn't pay enough attention to the CD releases of standard game tracks. Some of them, such as Bowser's Castle from Mario Kart Super Circuit on the Nintendo Soundtrack Selection CD, use high-quality samples that sound pretty good. Other ones, like the Wii Shop channel, create a different mood from the console original. Oh, whoa! The first 3DS game to be added to Nintendo Music is none other than Streetpass Mii Plaza. I remember the Mii Plaza having a music player, and with a premium upgrade, music could play in sleep mode. So now, with my premium Nintendo Switch Online subscription, I can listen to it on a phone. Here we go again. To my knowledge, there isn't a CD release for Streetpass Mii Plaza. There's one song that appears on a CD though. It's the ending theme of Find Me 2, found on another Nintendo Soundtrack Selection CD. Even though the disc has transformative, high-quality versions of songs and other mixes not heard on a console, the Find Me 2 ending theme here doesn't sound the same as the version on Nintendo Music. There's a little difference in the reverb, meaning the app isn't sourcing a CD. The rest of the tracks on the app are Nintendo Music revisions not found anywhere else. Some of the changes are subtle, while others seemingly replace or introduce instruments. I'm not going to say that the differences make them immediately worse. There are certain tracks that sound fantastic in high quality, like To Battle Heroes. But the other changes make me question how the track even ended up the way that it did. Even while staying within the bounds of Nintendo Music, going between Main Theme 1 and Main Theme 2 is a little jarring with the recorder instrument. The recorder on 2 sounds wimpy, seemingly missing effects like reverb that were present on 3DS and even Nintendo Music's Main Theme 1. Alright, whatever, it's a small difference. But I'm avoiding the elephant in the room. There's a brand new tambourine added on, with its own new notes and everything, effectively making this a new arrangement. Heck, there's even some random faint Microsoft-sounding piano keys that are thrown in there. All tracks in Streetpass Mii Plaza are sequenced, essentially meaning the 3DS relies on a set of instrument noises and a music sheet so that the song can be played in real time on the system. This is opposed to streamed audio, where the system plays back a recording that was done on another computer. Because the music on 3DS was sequenced, I can pry apart each instrument track and listen to them individually. Collected Pieces was a song where differences immediately stood out to me with the Nintendo Music version. I'd like to take a moment to break down some of the differences between the instruments from the Nintendo Music version against the 3DS version. These aren't just higher quality samples. Collecting pieces uses 16 different tracks, but in programming, things start from 0. Even though the Nintendo Music version isn't locally sequenced, I can use a visualization from the 3DS version for demonstration purposes. Within the first few seconds, something that stood out to me was the change of percussion on instrument track 6. This doesn't appear to just be a higher quality or uncompressed sample for Nintendo Music. This seems to be an entirely new instrument, with the percussion being changed from a xylophone to a triangle. It also seemed like the string instruments on tracks 8, 11, 12, and 14 have been completely changed. And in this part, there seems to be something going on with the guitar on track 3. The Nintendo Music version almost sounds like a live recording. With something like the strings changing, it ends up giving the song a different mood. The Nintendo Music version of Collected Pieces feels more grand compared to the simpler violins on 3DS. Before Streetpass Mii Plaza, Golden Sun had its soundtrack released on Nintendo Music. The Nintendo Music version features audio quality that surpasses what was heard on the GBA release. The key here is that the instruments haven't been replaced. Rather, they sound like the original ones, now in higher quality. Dealing with sequenced music can be tricky. In the case of consoles, the audio is meant to play back on a specific piece of hardware and is meant to sound in an exact way. Systems like the Wii and 3DS rely on sample-based audio, but when replicating it on another device, with specific effect parameters that might be different, it can make the music sound, well, different. I think it's great that Nintendo is working to remake their sample-sequenced music in higher quality, but I'd rather have a more faithful representation with better attention put on things like reverb parameters and using appropriate sounding instruments. If Nintendo Music is supposed to be Nintendo's answer to the re-uploads of their music, I find it doesn't do the best job at keeping an accurate historical representation of their console's music. And that's discounting the fact that not all tracks appear in the app. These tracks are being represented as the track. There's no indication that it's a rearrangement or version with new instruments. Someone who's unaware might listen to a song, never to realize that it sounds fairly different on original hardware. This isn't a problem that affects all tracks or even all consoles. Other sequence-based tracks for systems like Super Nintendo and DS are perfect. Streetpass Mii Plaza does have great conversions, but a few of them really stick out. Even if a track is higher quality than on console hardware, I'd love to see that as a faithful representation over a version with new instrumentation. Circling back to Main Theme 2, it's hard to say that this was the composer's original intention to have a tambourine. The 3DS hardware isn't hitting any sort of limitations with the amount of tracks in this song. Far from it. But, interestingly enough, the streamed home menu banner theme actually does have the tambourines, and that's on 3DS hardware. In any case, having multiple versions of these songs has given me something to think about. I'd rather see public access to more things from Nintendo's vault. More versions of anything, even if that means hearing versions of tracks that aren't the same as on console. I've used this like 3 times. Why did I buy this?